I've said that a YouTuber's rise will usually decide the cause of their sudden downfall, because actively betraying the brand and image you've spent years crafting is guaranteed to turn your audience against you. This is why some creators can get away with anything while others seem afraid to speak. And perhaps nobody proves this more than Ned Fulmer himself, who spent his entire career laying the groundwork that would lead to what would normally be a minor headline.
I cheated on my wife with my producer.
Escalating into a career-ending scandal that cost millions.
Ned Fulmer is no longer working with the Try Guys.
Like, okay, cheating on your spouse. That's terrible, but it's usually not a career ender. Unless you make your wife your entire brand.
It's called the Date Night Cookbook. It's recipes for every stage of your relationship.
Do you think now that you're married, you have a better marriage than me?
We have a new podcast.
Woo! It's called Baby Steps.
The raw stories of parenting. They're also gonna try and imitate my laugh.
My wife.
Workplace affair? That's gonna look a whole lot worse when it's one of your engaged employees.
That leaves you
No!
with the world's worst
I don't like this at all.
Production company founded by 4 men who historically might cut you some slack? Yeah, it just so happens that the other 3 founders prioritized the ethics of doing business over pure profit.
And that's a decision that has cost us lots of money. We will not be able to recoup that money, but it's a decision we stand by proudly.
But 3 years after the scandalous affair that led to him being ousted from the Try Guys,
I haven't been wearing pants.
Ned Fulmer is finally back to trying something new. Though in this case, it's neither his producer nor a thong, but a podcast about how hard it is to hit rock bottom, and we should really come around on second chances, you guys.
The idea behind the podcast is to tell stories of other people's challenging times and how they overcame them. I want to make stuff that helps people like empathize with others. I don't know, maybe I can, because of what I've gone through and my past, like connect with people and empathize with people.
You think you're interesting enough?
Yeah, it's a lot. Though while people might be growing concerned about yet another problematic celebrity escaping accountability, I wouldn't sharpen my pitchforks yet. Mostly because this podcast is going to fail. In fact, I would go so far as to say that I only see one specific scenario where this podcast does anything more than cover the rent of his post-divorce studio apartment. But usually, I tend to shy away from such definitive statements. So let's get into why exactly Ned Fulmer is not destined to be the next James Charles, Logan Paul, Shane Dawson, or even Trisha Paytas that gets away with it. In fact, if we look at the history of this medium, it's far more likely that he becomes the next Candace Owens. Which I admit sounds random, but hear me out. Now, by the nature of you watching this video, you likely know the broad strokes of what happened in 2022. So, to briefly recap, Ned Fulmer was one of the 4 then BuzzFeed video producers to form the Try Guys, essentially a group that seeks to showcase various lifestyles and experiences from various everyman perspectives. And like with most creators, each came to form their own personality that mainly revolved around one defining trait. So in videos, Eugene would be the cool aloof one, Keith the enthusiast.
Do you want us to hug you right now?
No.
Zach was the neurotic one.
Excellent. Other hand.
He did not say to scream, Eugene. That was terrifying.
I'm sorry.
And Ned emerged as the wife guy.
And we're beyond thrilled to be sharing this next chapter of our professional and personal lives with those who matter the most to us.
My wife.
No.
Oh, my baby.
This is because he was originally the only married member and would frequently bring up his wife and kids in unrelated situations.
My wife. My wife. My wife. My wife.
Now, eventually, the group went independent and did so to great applause. Their brand continued to expand, even to the point that co-founder Eugene Lee Yang was preparing to exit the group as on-camera talent in favor of transitioning to a larger ensemble. But just as those plans were about to be put into motion, Ned happened. Rumors started spreading online that Ned was involved in an affair with one of his engaged employees who also acted as on-camera talent. And this quickly escalated into a crisis for the brand, partially because, well, a quarter of their brand was how great of a husband this guy was.
We are launching with an epic 5-part series called Parenthood, all about my man Ned becoming a daddy for the first time.
And then ethically, beyond just cheating on a spouse, there was Ned's role as a boss. As conversations about consent have grown more prevalent, a particularly criticized dynamic was a boss pursuing or dating somebody who works under them, as the boss's power can easily be used to intimidate or coerce someone by using their career as leverage.
As a business owner, a secret boss dates and employee relationship is inappropriate in its power dynamics.
Not to mention the lawsuits it can open the company to.
If that relationship ends badly, it is a wrongful termination lawsuit at best and a sexual misconduct lawsuit at worst. Either one can easily bankrupt the company and put dozens of innocent employees out of a job.
It's also worth noting that rumors have circulated that Fulmer was operating as the head of HR. Now, I spent hours digging into this, even having help from some very nice viewers. Here is the most definitive information I could find. They did not have any formal HR department prior to this event.
And then finding an HR representative, like what even is a review internally? What does that even look like?
And Ned seemed to handle many of the more administrative tasks.
Ned loves spreadsheets so much.
I like doing spreadsheets. I don't know if the other guys can talk so much about what goes into starting a company.
So then we had to literally file paperwork to cancel previous paperwork.
You put all that in a document, and then you fill out some forms, put it to the state, put it to the federal government.
While also bringing up HR-related concerns the most often on their podcast. So it seems likely that he was informally acting as the closest thing they had to HR. But either way, there not being any HR is enough to make a boss dating an employee far worse. I usually don't bring up rumors, but it would have bothered me to see people saying I missed that, so anyway. While no statements have suggested that Ned was coercive towards his affair partner, and he has explicitly stated it was consensual, it coming to light led to Ned being ousted by the other founders, while his affair partner seemed to have resigned from the company. And among everything else that made this so bad, there was also the fact that, the dude didn't even try to hide it. Like, they were going to very public places and acting like a couple, despite him being one of the most famous husbands on earth.
I think I'm a pretty bad liar.
Which makes me really question the admissions process into Yale, but anyway. Following Ned's departure, there were a few developments. SNL made a really tasteless sketch where they mischaracterized Ned's firing as him keeping a secret from his friends.
So was this affair non-consensual?
No, worse. He committed the heinous act of having a consensual kiss and not telling us, his friends.
I'm sorry, why is that heinous?
Well, you have to remember the power dynamics, Laura. He's a try guy and she's a food baby.
Now, it's worth noting that Ned had actually gone to school with someone on that writing staff.
I was chatting with a different writer who I don't think is this friend, but went to Yale with you.
Oh,
and
Will Stevens.
Yeah.
And he was actually one of the ones who wrote the sketch. So do with that what you will. Also, Ned and his wife were only seen together a couple of times, with loose statements being made of working things out.
Hey, are you guys working things out?
But otherwise, Ned basically vanished apart from his statement. Sure, his LinkedIn hinted that he would be returning to media production, but there are plenty of behind-the-scenes roles that could take. So surely the wife guy, so bold as to not even try to hide his affair, wouldn't also be so bold as to start another media company that he's the face of, right? Except it's really obvious when I'm being sarcastic, so let's skip to the present. But first, I gotta thank today's sponsor, PDS Debt. Look, debt has a way of sneaking up on you, and it's not usually because of some big reckless decision. It's a late payment here, a medical bill you didn't expect there, and suddenly you're drowning. And thanks to that pesky interest, catching up can be almost impossible. That's where PDS Debt comes in. Whether you're stuck with credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, even collections, they take a look at your situation and put together an individualized plan that's right for you. No minimum credit scores, no hoops to jump through, just a strategy that helps you save more and get out of debt quicker. And of course, you want to be careful with who you trust with your money. But with PDS Debt, they've already worked with hundreds of thousands of people, they're A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, and have thousands of 5-star reviews backing them up. It's one of those rare services built to take something overwhelming and make it manageable. Don't let debt keep running the show when you're 30 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment right now at pdsdebt.com/Robbins. That's pdsdebt.com/Robbins. Thanks to PDS Debt for helping keep the lights on. Now back to the video.
Rock bottom. Yes, that's right. You know, it's a show about people's lowest moments and how they recovered from them.
Yes, Ned Fulmer has launched a new podcast, and a very conceptual one at that. And I actually think it's a great premise for anyone not named Ned Fulmer. See, since Ned's legacy will forever be defined by this moment of him hitting rock bottom, his podcast seeks to recruit others who have experienced a similar low point and were able to rebuild and ultimately flourish. Again, it's not a bad concept if you're into that kind of motivational stuff, but maybe you already see the problem. Presumably, Ned is going to be recruiting people with sympathetic stories, right? Maybe recovered addicts or those who overcame a struggle with mental illness. People who, yes, are still responsible for the pain they might have caused, but who we can sympathize with and see how they lost control and spiraled. I mean, those are some delicate subject matters, but surely the right host can bring it all together. Just one problem. Ned is specifically framing this podcast as him relating to those guests since he's had the same experience. Quote, hosted by Ned Fulmer, whose own rock bottom ranked number 6 of Time's most viral moments of 2022. But why is that such a problem? Well, let's say that he was able to score Demi Lovato as a guest. See, Demi has faced a very public struggle with bipolar disorder and a past exploitative relationship.
I'm only 29, 17 would never cross my mind.
And her response to these things have led to scrutiny from all kinds of sources. So, okay, mental health struggles mixed with classic Hollywood exploitation, she would be a great guest. But let's remember who she'd be sitting across as an equal. Ned, at least based on appearances, had money, fame, a great wife, kids, great friends, everything. Dude had it made. In another few years, he would have basically been living the life of Rhett and Link, where the production side of things run like clockwork, they have mainstream fame and adoration, while seeming to enjoy strong marriages and families. And he lost all of that because his midlife crisis came early and he couldn't just not sleep with his employee, or at least, try to hide it. So imagine Demi going into the mental health issues that led to her infamous sugar-free froyo rant, like eating disorders or the body dysmorphia that Hollywood encourages young girls to have. To which Ned goes, oh yeah, that reminds me of that time I cheated on my wife. Because we're two people who have both experienced rock bottom and came back from it. So if he has sympathetic guests on, he looks dumb if he tries to relate to them. But if he tries to focus on guests that are appropriate for him to relate to, they're just gonna be unlikable. And we already have the first couple of episodes to show that I'm right, because to launch the podcast, Ned decided to have the victim of his affair on the show. No, I'm not talking about the employee he cheated with who suddenly found themselves subjected to the scrutiny of millions despite having little experience as a public figure. No, I'm also not talking about the 3 co-founders of the company that he eviscerated a quarter of the branding for and possibly weaponized a comedy institution against. It's also not the kids that are going to grow up with this scandal being the defining public record of their last name, or the employees who are suddenly being bombarded by reporters while worrying about the certainty of the jobs they use to pay their bills. Wow, it's almost like this dude really did not care who he hurt as long as he got to feel 10 years younger, huh? Okay, time to stop being snarky and put my analysis hat back on. His former wife, Ariel Fulmer, was his first guest where they discussed, you guessed it, his affair. Again, great concept. You both hit rock bottom because of this affair, only one of you was responsible for it. What a great parallel, right? Okay, for real, now I'm done. Now, he started with a 4-minute statement that, cut for time, I'll let speak for itself.
Hi, I'm Ned Fulmer. 3 years ago, I cheated on my wife with my producer. It became a massive public scandal that caused a lot of pain. I know that I represented myself as a kind of wife guy. I betrayed my spouse, coworkers, friends, family, and I betrayed you. I was a company owner and having a relationship with a producer. I was engaged. It was understandably a messy and devastating situation for everyone involved. And I was the cause of it. I can't change the past. I can own it and accept it and try to change. I'm sorry. I hurt you and I hope to make amends.
One thing that I'll note is he doesn't really acknowledge the other 3 founding Try Guys, unless you count my coworkers when at the very least they were business partners. But I'll admit that could be me splitting hairs since I clearly don't like the guy, so save a tomato for my bias if needed. My complexion's red enough, it'll blend. Some other things that stood out to me was him framing this conversation as being for Ariel's benefit.
This is a conversation with Ariel, and it's necessary for her to move forward, and I'm grateful for the chance to witness it.
When no, you gained more from this because she was the only guest other than the 3 co-founders that would have gotten this much attention. Though in fairness, Ariel told Rolling Stone that she was the one to bring up the idea.
We can't move on with our lives if we don't, move on publicly.
Also, he initially refers to her as a current partner.
One step is to publicly witness the pain of my partner, Ariel.
When that's not the case.
Are we together?
We are not together. We live separately. We are devoted co-parents to our 2 beautiful, beautiful children.
Are we dating other people?
I mean, I'm open to dating other people. Yes, we are dating other people.
In fact, Ned's language throughout seems fittingly non-committal for where their relationship is at.
You know, there's a spectrum of being together, not together.
Right.
Like there's ways in which we're together, but it's like the way that everyone wants to know, like, are you guys still like an item? Are you guys still a couple? Like, no. We really haven't been at all this last 3 years.
No, we haven't.
What do you hope for the two of us?
While Ariel's language is much more definitive.
Why we're working so hard to rebuild.
I don't even know if I would call it rebuilding. I think we're building something new. People ask me, like, do you forgive Ned for what he did? And I mean, the answer is no, absolutely not. How can you forgive somebody for lying to you, for cheating on you? No. I don't even. Sorry, I saw red for a minute. It's like, no, the answer is no.
By the way, I didn't edit that. She just seems to want to make it real clear that she's not going to help make his apology tour more effective, which who can blame her, right? Again, there are just these little nudges of him trying to control the narrative.
We've recalibrated our relationship more towards a platonic friendship, and then, you know, it's just been challenging. We're getting to a point of sort of celebrating that and really like embracing it and accepting it for what it is. Another couple that you're friends with will say like, you know, hey, like, it was what you did. And also, everyone goes through hard times and you move forward the best you can.
Which I would say shows the issue with the concept. Any neutral language just feels like PR speak, at least to me. It feels like I can see the PR gears turning in real time, which is never helpful in a comeback. There's a reason why canceled YouTubers who are redeemed often have a more raw and real reaction.
Being called a rapist or a sex pest is a label that's probably never going to fully leave my name now because of these allegations and how far they ended up getting despite having no legs to stand on.
To address these allegations head on about me making fun of the suicide of my best friend, I just want to state that it's just untrue. The person making these claims never knew Daniel. They definitely were not a part of the group that experienced the trauma of losing him. It is disrespectful to bring him up as a weapon.
It's high risk, high reward. Because nowadays, people are savvy. Do you know why some nerd is able to make a living off of talking about the PR and branding of influencers? It's because people are paying closer attention to what they consume, and honestly, they're starting to see through these tricks. For example, there was an infamous moment where Ariel really opens up about his response to the situation, and Ned completely deflects the blame.
All of that guilt and shame, you like hoisted that on me. Like you gave that to me. And now I have to carry that around for the rest of my life.
I don't think it's fair that as a society you're put in that position. It's certainly not true.
But what do you expect? It's in his best interest to look like he's taking accountability.
And I just think, how could you do that to me? Like, who are you?
I'm so sorry. What I did to you is one of the most devastating things I think that a person can experience.
While actually minimizing the harm he did.
As much progress as we've had, you're still very angry. As disappointed as we were that something so private and painful became such a public spectacle. I've been hurting this person that I love this whole time.
You didn't realize until then?
Well, you know, but then there's other things you tell yourself to kind of sort of compartmentalize, or I guess.
Interesting.
There's also him consistently referring to his employee as his producer, which you could argue undermines the dynamic of him being her boss.
Yes, I did cheat with my producer, not my employee. She was my employee, but I said producer to make it not sound as bad.
So when it comes to this show, I'd say that the concept's strong, but Ned's just not the guy to do it. And even Ariel seemed to agree.
Maybe I can, because of what I've gone through and my past, like connect with people and empathize with people. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just. You think you're interesting enough?
No, I don't.
You think other people?
I think other people would be interesting, and then that's regardless of whether I think I'm interested. I don't want to talk about my.
Though for the broad strokes of the rest of their conversation, Ariel starts out with expressing mixed feelings towards her appearance.
I'm on the verge of like standing up and walking out of this room. Absolutely.
Same.
But ultimately agrees with Ned that it's the right way forward.
We can't move on with our lives if we don't, move on publicly. I want to have regular friends, and I don't want to walk up to somebody that I want to be friends with at like preschool and have to start every conversation with like, my personal life is a dumpster fire, as I'm sure you know, but also, do you want to be friends with me?
Yeah, since she's put this to bed in her own life, she doesn't want it to be the thing people still assume is relevant to her all this time later. They also aren't together despite trying to move forward.
There's moments when we kind of tried, but just because you go to a Taylor Swift concert together doesn't mean that you're, that all is forgiven.
But are on good terms as co-parents.
Maybe we are at a restaurant with our kids, and I don't have to feel shame because I'm like, having fun.
Right.
Where people are like, oh my God, are they back together?
Right.
Just because I'm like having a joyful time with my kids and my ex-husband. Like, is that a crime?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're going to Greece together next week.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we've like redefined our relationship, not as partners, romantic partners.
Yeah.
Those sort of like, family or platonic partners and pals, if you want to say, pals.
But yeah, they aren't quite past it in other ways.
How can you forgive somebody for lying to you, for cheating on you? No. No.
And are in fact firm in their decision to not be together. At least Ariel is.
I'm open to dating other people.
And then Ned gives his teaser for the next episode, which already shows the issue I'm describing here.
Next week, I'm excited to not be the subject of the episode. I'll be having a conversation with Laura Love Hardin. She is a mother who overcame a battle with heroin addiction and eventually was a Oprah book club bestseller.
Like, is it not weird to go, hey, let's talk about our rock bottoms? You for a debilitating addiction that threatened to tear away the fabric of your life, and me for throwing away everything I had in favor of a fling that didn't even turn into a relationship. Ned also expresses resentment for being pigeonholed as the wife guy.
It's ironic because at the same time, I think what the internet wants from you is to be a one-dimensional character.
How so?
Like the things that consistently drew people in were adorable family posts or talking about my wife, and then producers lean into that and like craft situations for me, and I don't know, over time it felt super pigeonholed.
Which you gotta admit sounds a lot like if Lin-Manuel Miranda complained about being typecast as a fast-speaking, brash, but likable protagonist of Caribbean origin who pushes away their love interest in pursuit of their goals and philosophies, only to realize what truly matters in the end. But sure, be resentful of a role you casted yourself in. Yeah, let's get into why I think that this comeback is dead on arrival, despite me usually opting for more neutral language. The first thing working against Ned here is that I cannot imagine who the target audience can possibly be here, you know? Like, okay, the people who loved him don't anymore. So he's not going to recapture the female 20-something demographic that found him endearing, since he already flew against everything that drew that crowd to him. He's also betrayed the very core of his branding already, so why would anyone grow attached to another swing at a good guy persona? Even if you buy the whole at his expense shtick, there's also just the fact that, while yes, he does use language to distance himself from the harm of his actions, he is owning up to the fact that he's the one who effed up. But it's very rare for apologetic reactions to cancellations to result in forgiveness. A lot of people more see it as a chance to hit them while they're down. Really, the main exception that comes to mind is Atrioc, who received pushback for accidentally revealing that he was consuming adult deepfake content of streamers he knew. But coming back from that took a lot on his part to undo the damage of his actions.
And we hit a pretty big milestone, which is this. 200,000 delistings, which is double the initial goal, the estimated cost if they had used traditional legal takedown methods. And that adds up to $8.66 million across all the people we've signed up for an investment of under $100K to get that much taken down, which is really cool.
But one, I would imagine that Atriox's audience is primarily men. So for an issue that primarily hurts women, that road to redemption is going to be quite a bit less rocky. And two, because the main harm was from Atriox accidentally publicizing his content, there is a path to offsetting that harm with positive change. But for Ned, since the worst harm of his decisions, not mistake, decisions, happen behind closed doors, he can't really offset that without just trying to make himself look like the good guy, and either be self-deprecating, which could be seen as confirmation of the negative feelings people have towards him, much like how the public perceives really public apologies, or self-congratulatory where he's patting himself on the back for his growth, which, we don't need another Trisha or Logan thinking that they should be made a saint for sucking a little less actively than before, you know?
A lot of room to growth. In the past 3 years alone, like I'm a completely different person than the dude who did that.
And I look back at my videos and I'm like, well, you know, some of them are pretty bad, but I try to give myself grace and forgiveness with that because I used to be really hard on myself. I'm like, I know, I suck, I'm problematic.
In other words, Ned's tone seems to be the worst of both worlds. And if Ned is trying to recapture the previous audience of left-leaning young women, if I'm being honest, I just don't think the climate on the left right now is super open to white guys getting redemption from the consequences of their own actions. Probably don't need me to say more, right?
Forgive my French, but fuck you, ta-ta, goodbye.
I mean, everybody wants a canceled white guy to start a podcast.
And I made a joke about him being the next Candace Owens, because I genuinely tried to think about if this podcast were to be successful, who could it possibly be because of? Like, which group would possibly mobilize enough to give this show the numbers to chart? And I feel crazy because the only answer I can come up with was incels. Hear me out. We established why women aren't likely to flock to him. And no offense to Ned, I'm not any better, but he doesn't exactly have the look that would lead to enough women defending his flaws, nor does he have a righteous cause for people to latch onto. I'm basically saying he's no Luigi. So, okay, that's gone, and for the last mention of identity politics, I don't see a straight, white, adulterous man who became a physical representation of the injustice and abuses of power and entertainment, not to mention marriage, as too appealing to a left-leaning audience. Quite infamously, the left never forgets stuff like this, and as many have pointed out, if his plan is to take the authenticity route, he sucks at it. Because you can't really be authentic in describing your role in an affair without sounding really entitled.
What happened?
The dream started to break apart for me, and then rather than being able to talk about it or to confront those feelings, I guess I was too afraid to say how I was actually feeling.
Legitimately, the only people I can see latching onto this are people who either have cheated on their partners and want to feel better about it, or don't think that what he did is that bad. Like, I can only imagine some alpha male wannabe shtick where cheating on your partner is just what men are evolved to do.
And now we're living in a world where we pretend it's normal for men to be sexually exclusive. They never have been.
That's it. I literally can't think of anyone else that would watch this unless it's like the people who can't look away from a disaster. And like, Ned doesn't strike me as much of a grifter. It just doesn't seem like it's for him. And that audience is not going to react well to women who appear on the show, and his first two guests are women. So yeah, he's already struggling to find his audience. I mean, the only real takeaway from Ariel's interview was there aren't sides here, but everyone's on hers. And don't get me wrong, intentionally catastrophic rebrands are a thing, but in the case of an iDubbbz or Nick is Not Green, they intentionally torpedoed their viewership because they became resentful of the impact their original content was making.
I was being cruel, hateful, bigoted, and being very uncaring about people's feelings.
And of course, it's ironic that I have spent hours over dozens of videos laughing at people's mistakes and the way they respond to criticism when I myself have been closed off to any criticism or feedback.
So even in those cases, one, it wasn't about their character as much as their content. Two, they burned almost their entire audience in doing so. And third, they weren't starting from scratch. Like, if the goal of an intentionally catastrophic rebrand is views, that goal is going to fail. Quickly, I might add. And while you might say that Ned's podcast already having 65,000 subscribers proves me wrong, I mean, it looks like he's gaining on me pretty quickly, this isn't actually a new channel. Quite ironically, the channel used to be the home of Ned and Ariel's joint podcast and gained those subscribers during that time.
We are here with Jenny Best from Solid Starts. Hello, Jenny, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to Baby Steps.
It's almost like he's always needed others to endear him to an audience, huh? So the net gain from launching Rock Bottom was closer to 3,000 subscribers in the first week, and starting on the 8th day, the channel switched to losing subscribers. And yeah, it's pathetic performance for a huge star who is making their comeback after 3 years. Not to mention that, in my opinion, it is an incredibly amateur move to suddenly overhaul a channel rather than starting from scratch. The negative engagement from people who don't want to be served this content signals to the algorithm that people aren't interested in what this channel is putting out. So while short term you do seem more successful, long term you're trying to artificially game the algorithm in a way that undermines the end goal of making it work for you. There's also just the fact that, in my opinion, his production value is just way too high. Which I admit sounds weird, but YouTubers historically see a better response from making their videos feel somewhat homemade.
Why is it that after all that, you still export in 1080p?
I don't like the way high quality footage looks. At the end of the day, it's just me and the boys messing around. We still come up with the videos. It's still things that I find fun and I enjoy, and I don't ever want things to feel too produced. Why, do you do 8K?
We do 4K. To some extent, in the tech genre, there's like an expectation that you have good production value.
Of course.
If I can't take good footage, who am I to judge other phones?
And while I admit this might sound like a weird nitpick, you absolutely had people like Courtney Miller finding it particularly off-putting. It's hard to explain, but there are a lot of little touches of psychology throughout media production that can radically change viewer experience, and surprisingly, that can be one. Like the fact that there's only room in my apartment to store my video games here, despite this not being a gaming channel, makes me seem more relatable than if this was like a professional 4K studio, right? And so far, the engagement of these episodes suggests that he's not getting a very warm reception here. And while yeah, extensions that show dislikes are skewed data, unless your margin of error is 100%, I don't think that matters too much here, especially given that the views on his second episode are, well, not exactly pulling Try Guy numbers. And ultimately, I think that's where I'm at. It's a show that no one wants from a guy no one wants to see talk about things that no one thinks he's the guy to talk about. And while yes, it's going to be hard to come back from a screw up so big that it made Zach the fan favorite, seriously, I don't think anyone saw that coming 4 years ago. Hey, maybe I'm wrong and Ned Fulmer really has changed. I mean, come on, I'm sure that as long as he just takes his time and doesn't try to rush back to the exact same place that he was before.
So I'm being told by my producer to ask you about colonics.
It's only been 3 episodes and he already got himself a new producer. So, see you guys next year?